Hi guys, here's another video. This one is for chapter 5, old specification, evolution, and we're looking at speciation. Okay, so this is basically about evolution. How do we get two different species? All right, so we're looking at how does natural selection lead to speciation. Speciation is the creation of different species. All right, so what you start off with, first of all, for your first mark, caused by a selection pressure in the environment. So a selection pressure could be something like a change in food. So maybe there's less food available, okay? Maybe there's a new predator, maybe there's an environmental disaster, okay? So you have like something like food, predator, drought. These are your kind of examples, will cause a pressure on a certain species. So there'll be a pressure on a species to try and survive, all right? So that's your first one, caused by a selection pressure. Second one, variation must exist within the species. So if every species is like a clone, so some plants or some bacteria are like clones of themselves, if there's no variation within that species to start with, then it can't happen. But for example, humans are very, very varied. Chimpanzees, mice, rats, lizards, we all have variations. There are no two identical humans unless you're twins, okay? So variation must exist within a species, okay? And we're going to look at why that is. Variation, you can mention, arises randomly due to mutation, okay? So this is random. Variation arises randomly, very important you say randomly, due to mutation. So that's a mutation within the DNA, within the genes, okay? So it's not planned for, just arises randomly. Variation is enhanced by meiosis or sexual reproduction, okay? So the variation is enhanced by meiosis. It arises due to mutation, but then meiosis also causes a variety. So the sperm are different, the egg cells are different. So when they match, they're always different ones, okay? So you've always got different characteristics within that species. Individuals, we're moving on to what actually happens now. Individuals with the best adaptations, so the best genes with the best adaptations, survive and reproduce. So for example, if you had a new predator coming into your system, your environmental habitat, and that caused a selective pressure, then individuals with best adaptations who are able to run away or are able to hide with camouflage will be able to survive, and then they will be able to reproduce. This causes the preferred genes, so the genes that allow for the adaptations to outrun the predator. Those preferred genes causing the advantage are passed on to the next generation. If they're not, then you can't get a new species. So these genes are passed on to the next generation. That offspring of the new generation will have those good genes, and it will start to look different to its parents, to other ones, because it will have these decent genes, okay? This genetic difference increases genetic divergence, okay? So over time, the ones that survive will have these better adaptations. Let's say they have longer legs to run. So you'll start to notice over many generations that the legs are getting longer because the genes are being passed on to outrun the predator. The ones with the shorter legs are dying and they're getting eaten. They're not able to reproduce. So therefore, they don't pass those genes on, that code for example, short legs. The longer leg ones will start to pass on those long leg genes, and you'll start to see a divergence. So it's very important that you say a genetic difference or a genetic divergence will start to occur. You'll have short-legged ones and long-legged ones. They're still the same species, but you start to see that divergence. And then eventually they become so different that you get isolation. So isolation of a species genetically. What this means is it means reproductive isolation. The longer leg ones can now no longer reproduce with the short leg ones. So you get no breeding and no fertile offspring are produced between the long and the short legged animals that were originally the same species. Over the long term, you get reproductive isolation, which causes speciation. Okay, so over the long term, you'll end up with short-legged, let's say rabbits. You have short-legged rabbits, you'll have long-legged rabbits. Eventually, the genes become so different that when they try and reproduce, they can't reproduce. Eventually, behaviorally, they won't even recognize each other as the same species, and they will stop reproducing altogether. There you have speciation. You now have created, over many generations, you've now got two different species, which is called speciation. And that keeps on going and going and going, and that is why we have this variety of animals and plants on this planet. Okay, thanks for listening. This is a nice 7-mark question. So how does natural selection lead to speciation? Rewind the video, go through each point there, try and work out a way to remember these different points, and you'll get 7 out of 7 marks. Well done. Take care. Bye bye.